The morning that would mark the collapse of our dentist group began like any other in downtown Chicago. Naomi Ellis, the billionaire CEO of Ellis Innovations, arrived alone at the glass-fronted skyscraper that housed our dentist's headquarters. She wore a tailored navy coat over a simple pearl gray dress. No security team, no assistant in tow, just the quiet confidence of a self-made. The lobby sparkled under the morning light, yet, as Naomi stepped inside, Brittany Caldwell, the young receptionist behind the marble desk, barely spared her a glance before narrowing her eyes. Her gaze slid from Naomi's natural curls to the discreet leather tote at her side. A black woman. Alone. No flashy logos. Definitely not someone important. "You'll want the service entrance." "Ma'am?" Brittany said flatly, already gesturing toward a side hallway. "Deliveries and maintenance go through there." Naomi paused, momentarily startled. "I'm not here for a delivery. I have a 9 a.m. appointment with Mr. Harold Whitman." Brittany smirked without checking the computer. "I'm sure you think you do, but meetings like that aren't open to the public." She leaned forward, lowering her voice just enough to make it condescending. "People like you usually don't meet with the CEO. You must have the wrong building." Naomi's calm brown eyes hardened slightly. "Please check. The name is Naomi Ellis," and still refusing to verify. Brittany rolled her eyes. "I'll have to ask security to escort you out if you don't leave." She lifted her phone, dialing without hesitation. "We've got someone refusing to leave the lobby." 2 security guards arrived swiftly, both white, both sizing Naomi up as if she were trespassing. One reached gently but firmly for her arm. "Ma'am, let's not cause a scene." From the mezzanine above, Camille Foster watched in silent horror. She recognized Naomi immediately. Naomi Ellis, one of the few black female CEOs to lead a tech company valued at over $10 billion. Camille's hands gripped the railing until her knuckles whitened. She wanted to rush down, to intervene, but fear rooted her to the floor. She knew all too well how speaking up could end a black woman's career here. Across the lobby, Gregory Shaw, our dentist's COO, stepped out of the executive elevator. He paused, spotting Naomi as the guards began steering her toward the exit. His sharp, calculating eyes recognized her instantly, but instead of intervening, Gregory remained silent. A slow, almost imperceptible smirk curved his lips. Naomi offered no resistance. She allowed herself to be guided toward the revolving doors. Her expression remained poised, calm, but in her mind, a strategy was already forming. She glanced up at the Ardentis logo etched into the glass above the entrance. So this is how they treat those they don't recognize. As she stepped out into the brisk Chicago air, Naomi pulled out her phone. Her voice was steady, controlled. "Page. Execute Plan Delta. Withdraw our proposal from Ardentis immediately." Across the street, unnoticed, reporters gathered outside a neighboring office for an unrelated press conference. Cameras pointed casually toward the Ardentis tower. None of them knew they had just witnessed the first domino falling toward a corporate earthquake. Naomi Ellis walked calmly down the sidewalk. Every stride not just an exit, but the beginning of Ardentis Group's end. By the time Naomi Ellis returned to her office at Ellis Innovations, the wheels of a quiet, devastating retaliation were already turning. Her assistant, Paige Morgan, greeted her with a concerned look. "The press team and legal are standing by. They thought you'd be tied up with the Ardentis meeting." Naomi removed her coat with calm precision. "There will be no meeting. Prepare a formal notice. We are withdrawing from the Ardentis Green Tech Development proposal immediately." Paige's eyes widened. "That's $1 billion project." Naomi's gaze was steady. "And we'll divert every resource to our backup plan. Start informing our partners discreetly. Tell them why." Paige nodded silently. She knew Naomi well enough not to question further. Ellis Innovations didn't just do business. They built alliances rooted in integrity, and any company that allowed arrogance and prejudice to fester would no longer enjoy their support. Meanwhile, Inside the towering glass fortress of our dentist group, Brittany Caldwell sipped her caramel latte at the front desk. The morning's altercation had already slipped from her mind. "I put another one in her place," she boasted quietly to her co-worker, a fellow receptionist named Tyler. "These people keep thinking they can waltz into corporate meetings dressed like that." Tyler gave a nervous chuckle but avoided her eyes. He had overheard the name Naomi Ellis during the exchange and wasn't so sure Brittany's arrogance was justified. Upstairs, Gregory Shaw entered CEO Harold Whitman's office without knocking. "Naomi Ellis showed up this morning," Gregory reported smoothly. "You're 9 a.m. Harold frowned. "And where is she?" Gregory shrugged, suppressing the satisfaction in his voice. "Reception said she had no appointment. She was escorted out." Harold stood abruptly. "That's impossible. Naomi's team confirmed yesterday. She was scheduled." Gregory's tone remained composed. "The receptionist insisted she wasn't on the list. Perhaps a clerical error, but it's handled." Harold stared out the window, troubled. "We can't afford missteps right now. Ellis Innovations is key to securing the green tech expansion. They hold the patents on half our environmental retrofitting designs." Gregory folded his arms. "Frankly, I'm not convinced partnering with Ellis is the right move. Tying our future to a company led by someone with Naomi's background brings scrutiny. Investors prefer traditional leadership." Harold hesitated, conflicted. Gregory's unspoken message was clear. Old money, old power structures. Keep them intact. Still, Harold muttered, "We need that partnership. Make sure it's salvaged." Gregory gave a non-committal nod, but in his mind, the opposite was already in motion. At that very moment, Camille Foster sat in a quiet corner office on the 11th floor. Her phone buzzed with a private message. "Camille, did you see what happened this morning? Tyler?" Her fingers trembled as she typed back. "I saw Naomi Ellis. They removed her." "You have to say something." Camille's throat tightened. She wanted to. She wanted to march straight into Harold Whitman's office and tell him the truth. But experience had taught her the cost of speaking out. She had fought for years to become the only black woman in Ardentis' IT leadership team. Too often, she'd watched colleagues punished for less. Her eyes drifted to the plaque on her desk. "Integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching." She took a deep breath but remained silent. By noon, whispers rippled through the upper management levels. Word spread that Naomi Ellis had abruptly canceled the partnership talks. Ardentis stock, which had opened strong, dipped 3% by lunchtime. In the executive boardroom, Harold Whitman barked at his aides. "Get Ellis on the phone. Offer an apology. Say whatever's necessary to get her back to the table." But Paige Morgan, with practiced professionalism, fielded the calls with a simple, unwavering response. "Ms. Ellis has no further comment. Ellis Innovations has chosen to pursue other strategic directions." By the end of the day, 4 other companies aligned with Ellis Innovations quietly withdrew from their negotiations with Ardentis. No official explanations were given. Gregory Shaw watched the numbers slip across his laptop screen. Instead of concern, a subtle smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Let the old man sweat," he murmured to himself. "Once Harold stumbles, the board will look to me for leadership." But Gregory had overlooked one critical detail. Naomi Ellis was not reacting impulsively. She was executing a carefully measured plan, and the first cracks in Ardentis Group's empire had only just begun to show. The following week began with a chill in the autumn air. But inside Ardentis Group's executive suites, the temperature was boiling. Harold Whitman's office, once a sanctuary of polished mahogany and leather, had become a battlefield. His phone buzzed relentlessly calls from investors, partners, and media outlets demanding answers. But there were no satisfactory answers to give. Naomi Ellis had gone silent, dead silent, and silence was the most terrifying response of all. On Monday morning, Harold gathered his executive team in the boardroom. Gregory Shaw arrived last, carrying his signature air of calm detachment. "As most of you know, Harold began, adjusting his cufflinks to mask his unease. Ellis Innovations has withdrawn from not just our green tech proposal, but all joint ventures. A murmur rippled around the table. Harold continued. Several of their strategic partners have also canceled or delayed negotiations with us. Our stock has fallen 12% since Thursday. Gregory tapped his pen thoughtfully. That's unfortunate, but perhaps this is an opportunity to reposition ourselves with new partners, ones aligned with more traditional corporate values. Harold shot him a glare. Traditional values won't cover a projected $350 million shortfall. Gregory. The room went silent. For once, even Gregory had no glib retort. Downstairs, in the soaring marble lobby where it had all begun, Brittany Caldwell sensed something was wrong. The friendly nods and smiles she usually received from colleagues had disappeared. Instead, people avoided her gaze. A few whispered when she passed. Tyler, her fellow receptionist, had grown unusually quiet. At noon, her supervisor summoned her to HR. Janet Collins, the head of human resources, sat with folded arms, her face grim. Brittany, Janet began without preamble. Did you deny entry to Naomi Ellis last week? Brittany blinked, forcing a smile. She didn't have an appointment, and she paused, choosing her words carefully. Dressed like a service contractor, I followed protocol. Janet's jaw tightened. Protocol does not include making assumptions based on race, attire, or unverified perceptions. Brittany's stomach tightened. It was a misunderstanding. Janet slid a paper across the desk. It was a screenshot. A social media post had surfaced. A building security employee had leaked the lobby footage to a friend, who had posted a blurred but unmistakable image of Brittany gesturing toward Naomi Ellis with disdain while security removed her. The caption read, "This how our dentist treats black billionaires. Shameful." The post had already garnered 250,000 shares. By Wednesday, the crisis had gone public. Naomi Ellis broke her silence with a single, devastating statement released to the Wall Street Journal. Ellis Innovations stands for integrity, equality, and the belief that all individuals deserve respect, regardless of appearance or background. We will not engage in partnerships with organizations that fail to uphold these values. No direct mention of our dentists, but everyone knew. Social media exploded. Influential figures in business and media rallied behind Naomi. Television anchors dissected the incident. Hashtags like #Ellis stands strong and #corporate bias exposed trended nationally. Our dentist group's stock hemorrhaged value, dropping another 15%. That afternoon, Paige Morgan entered Naomi's office holding a tablet. "You need to see this." Naomi, sitting in quiet reflection by the window, accepted the tablet. On the screen was a video clip. Camille Foster, her face pale but determined, stood outside our dentist's front entrance, speaking to a local news crew. "What happened to Ms. Ellis wasn't an isolated incident. I've worked at our dentist for 12 years. Discrimination and disrespect are embedded in the company culture. I stayed silent for too long. Not anymore." Naomi watched silently. Then a small, approving smile touched her lips. Paige hesitated. "Do you want to reach out to her?" Naomi shook her head gently. "Not yet. She's already doing what matters most, choosing courage over comfort." Inside our dentist headquarters, chaos reigned. Gregory Shaw moved swiftly. He convened a meeting with sympathetic board members. "Harold's leadership has become a liability. We need to consider new direction before more damage is done." Several nodded in agreement. The stock value had now dropped nearly 30%. Major clients were pulling out. But Gregory had another reason to accelerate Harold's downfall. His private emails with James Harlow, CEO of rival property developer Zenith Partners, had grown bolder. Gregory had promised to tank our dentist's Ellis partnership to weaken the company and smooth his own ascent to CEO. Zenith would acquire weakened Ardentis assets. Gregory would secure his power. It was a ruthless, calculated betrayal, but it was working. Or so Gregory thought. By Friday, the media storm had reached a fever pitch. Employees gathered in hushed clusters in the break rooms. Investors demanded emergency meetings. Harold Whitman finally acted. He summoned Brittany Caldwell once more. "Brittany," he barked, "your actions have placed this company in peril." Brittany flushed red. "I didn't know who she was. I was just doing my job." Harold slammed his fist on the desk. "Your job is to treat every visitor with respect, effective immediately. You're suspended pending further investigation." Brittany's protests fell on deaf ears. She left HR in tears, facing not just suspension, but the likelihood of becoming a national symbol of corporate racism. As she passed Camille Foster in the hallway, Camille's eyes held no malice, only sadness. Brittany wanted to scream that it wasn't fair, that no one had told her Naomi Ellis was important. But deep down, she knew that wasn't the point. She had treated someone with contempt simply because she thought she could, and now, the consequences were unavoidable. That evening, Naomi Ellis called a private meeting with her inner circle. Paige Morgan, the legal team, and 2 senior advisors gathered in the executive suite. Naomi stood by the window, Chicago's skyline glittering behind her. "The time has come," she said. "We've withheld public details out of professionalism, but our dentist's internal culture is now a public concern." She turned toward the group. "Tomorrow, we release the documentation, years of reports, employee testimonies including Camille Foster's. We expose the full extent of our dentist's systemic bias." Paige nodded. "We've vetted everything. The evidence is airtight." Naomi's gaze was clear, resolute. "We're not doing this out of revenge. We're doing it to ensure that no other company normalizes this behavior under the guise of corporate tradition." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the magnitude of what was coming. On Saturday morning, Ellis Innovations released a comprehensive report to the media, detailing verified accounts of bias and discrimination at our dentist group. Camille Foster's testimony headlined the release. Other anonymous accounts followed. The report included damning evidence, email records revealing patterns of dismissive attitudes toward minority employees, HR complaints buried or ignored, disparaging remarks made by executives during private meetings, including direct quotes attributed to Gregory Shaw. By noon, every major business outlet had picked up the story. CNN, Bloomberg, the New York Times. Investors fled in droves. Our dentist stock plunged another 20%. Clients like Meridian Financial and West Bay Development announced they were terminating contracts immediately. Protesters gathered outside our dentist headquarters. Signs reading "Respect over profit" and "Dismantle corporate racism" filled the sidewalks. Harold Whitman stood in his office watching the crowds, his hands trembling. He turned to Gregory Shaw. "We have to make a public apology. We have to fix this." Gregory's expression was unreadable. "It's too late." Harold narrowed his eyes. "You wanted this, didn't you?" Gregory didn't answer, but the slight, cold smile said everything. That night, Naomi sat at home, sipping chamomile tea, watching the news coverage. Paige texted her, "The board is meeting Monday. Rumor is Harold may step down." Naomi replied simply, "It's not about him anymore." Her eyes drifted to a framed photo on her bookshelf, a much younger Naomi standing beside her grandmother, who had once told her, "Dignity is power, and the world underestimates those who carry both." Naomi smiled faintly. She wasn't done yet. This wasn't the fall of a man. It was the collapse of a toxic empire, and it was only the beginning. By Monday morning, the once proud Ardentis Group teetered on the edge of collapse. The board of directors gathered in a somber emergency meeting on the top floor. Harold Whitman, eyes sunken from sleepless nights, stood at the head of the polished mahogany table. The room, usually abuzz with polite conversation, was suffocatingly quiet. "Before we begin," Harold rasped, "I want to state clearly the handling of Naomi Ellis's visit was a gross failure, but this is salvageable if we act quickly and responsibly." He gestured to the investor relations officer. who nodded and began listing proposed damage control measures, a formal apology, diversity audits, temporary suspension of implicated managers, outreach to affected clients. But as the officer spoke, Gregory Shaw leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes cool and unreadable. Too little, too late, he thought. Downstairs, Brittany Caldwell sat stiffly outside the HR office. Her hands trembled in her lap as Janet Collins appeared, expression grim. "Brittany," Janet said firmly, "your suspension has been reviewed. After internal and external investigations, we have no choice." She slid an official letter across the desk. "You are terminated immediately for professional misconduct and violations of company policy." Brittany's throat tightened. "But it's not just the Ellis incident," Janet continued. "Multiple staff have come forward describing prior behavior patterns, dismissiveness, bias, breaches of protocol." Brittany opened her mouth to defend herself, but no words came. She remembered every time she had smirked at visitors she deemed unimportant, every time she had ignored or belittled colleagues like Camille Foster. Now, the judgment was final. Her arrogance had not only destroyed her career, it had become a national scandal. Janet added quietly, "Security will escort you out, and Brittany, prepare for potential legal action from Ellis Innovations." Brittany's vision blurred as tears welled. She gathered her belongings in silence and left the only career she had ever known. Upstairs, Harold continued presenting his recovery plan to the board, but halfway through, Elizabeth Romero, the most senior independent director, raised a hand sharply. "Mr. Whitman, there's a more urgent matter." Harold frowned. "What could be more urgent than—" Elizabeth's assistant entered the room, handing her a tablet. "Documents have surfaced," Elizabeth said grimly. "From the Internal Security Department." She tapped the screen. The display switched to the main conference room monitor. A series of emails appeared. At first glance, they seemed ordinary, but as the board members read, the color drained from Harold's face. Gregory Shaw's personal correspondence with James Harlow, CEO of Zenith Partners. Gregory had been funneling confidential Ardentis data to Zenith for months. Project bids, client lists, financial vulnerabilities. The emails detailed an elaborate plot to undermine Ardentis's Ellis partnership, destabilize the leadership, and pave the way for Zenith's acquisition of Ardentis assets at a bargain price. At the bottom of the final email, "Once Whitman is forced out, I'll assume interim CEO. Zenith takes the assets. We both win. Gregory Shaw." A stunned silence gripped the room. Harold turned slowly toward Gregory, voice hoarse with disbelief. "Gregory, is this real?" Gregory didn't deny it. He stood calmly, straightening his tie. "It's business. Harold, you were too sentimental, too willing to let outsiders reshape this company. I did what was necessary. You betrayed me. You betrayed Ardentis." Gregory's eyes hardened. "No, I tried to save it from your incompetence and from the so-called progress that would have destroyed our legacy." Harold's fists clenched on the tabletop. "Security," he barked. "Remove him from the premises and notify legal." 2 security officers entered. Gregory remained eerily calm as they took him by the arms. "You won't stop Zenith's plans," Gregory warned over his shoulder. "Ellis exposed our weaknesses. The vultures will descend. You're finished." As the doors closed behind him, the board sat in stunned disbelief. Harold sank heavily into his chair, defeated. That afternoon, Naomi Ellis released a second public statement. This time, she didn't hold back. "Ardentis Group's internal documents and employee testimonies have confirmed systemic bias and misconduct. We call upon regulators and industry partners to investigate and hold accountable those responsible. Respect and equity are not optional. They are the foundations of sustainable business." The response was immediate and seismic. The SEC launched an inquiry. Shareholders filed class action lawsuits. Ardentis' stock plummeted by 60%. Business partners terminated contracts. Lenders withdrew credit lines. Media outlets dissected every detail. The once mighty Ardentis Group was in free fall. Amid the collapse, Camille Foster stepped forward publicly. At a press conference organized by Ellis Innovations, she stood beside Naomi, eyes steady. "I stayed silent for too long," Camille said into the microphones. "But when leaders like Naomi Ellis stand for what's right, the rest of us find the courage to do the same. I speak today not for myself alone, but for every professional who has been dismissed, overlooked, or disrespected because of who they are." The crowd erupted in applause. Naomi placed a reassuring hand on Camille's shoulder. "You are not just a voice for change," Naomi told her quietly. "You are the change." By Friday, the final blow landed. Elizabeth Romero announced to the media, "The board of Ardentis Group has accepted Mr. Harold Whitman's resignation, effective immediately. We will cooperate fully with regulatory investigations." Harold left the building that afternoon without fanfare. No cameras, no send-off, just the heavy burden of failure. As he rode the elevator down, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirrored walls, a man who had allowed prejudice, negligence, and betrayal to rot the company he had once loved. That evening, Naomi Ellis watched the news reports from her office. Paige entered quietly. "The last client has confirmed termination of their Ardentis contracts. Their collapse is now a matter of days." Naomi nodded slowly. "Any word from Camille?" "She's received several offers already." Paige smiled. "But she's waiting for yours." Naomi turned to the window, looking out over Chicago's skyline. "Good. It's time." Her voice was calm, steady. "We don't just close chapters. We build new ones." And the next chapter would begin very soon. 2 months later, the skyline of Chicago shimmered under the early winter sun, where once the towering glass facade of Ardentis Group symbolized old power and silent prejudice. Now a new banner was being raised, Ellis Equity Hub. The acquisition had been swift. As Ardentis declared bankruptcy, Naomi Ellis's holding company quietly purchased the building and several of its surrounding properties, not as a trophy of conquest, but as the foundation for a bold new vision. On a cold but bright morning, Naomi stood at the entrance of the newly rebranded tower. Her breath formed soft clouds in the chilly air. At her side stood Camille Foster, now wearing a tailored navy suit and an expression of both pride and awe. "You really did it," Camille whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Naomi smiled softly. "No, we did it. And today, it becomes more than just a building. It becomes a statement." Behind them, workers hoisted the final letters of the new sign. The old Ardentis name was gone. In its place, Ellis Equity Hub Innovation, Inclusion, Integrity. Inside the grand atrium, the atmosphere was transformed. Gone were the cold marble floors and sterile decor. The new design featured open spaces flooded with natural light. Art by local minority artists adorned the walls. Meeting rooms were named after pioneers of social justice, science, and technology. And at the heart of the hub's mission opportunity, Naomi turned to Camille. "I meant what I said. Camille, this center will be a launchpad for underrepresented entrepreneurs, innovators, and professionals, and I want you to lead it." Camille's eyes widened. "Me? You've already led," Naomi said gently. "You chose truth over comfort, courage over silence. That's the leadership we need." Camille took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Then I accept, and I promise I'll make sure this becomes the beacon you envisioned." Naomi clasped her hand. "Not my vision, our vision." At the press conference later that day, reporters filled the spacious auditorium. The same outlets that had once covered Ardentis's downfall now gathered to witness a new beginning. Naomi addressed the crowd first. "When we began this journey, our goal was not revenge. It was accountability. And from accountability must come change." She gestured toward Camille. Today, I introduce Camille Foster as CEO of Ellis Equity Hub. She represents not only professional excellence, but the courage it takes to challenge injustice and build better systems. Camille stepped forward to a wave of applause. Cameras flashed. She spoke with clarity and strength. This center will provide funding, mentorship, and resources to innovators who have been overlooked for far too long, no matter your background, gender, race, or the obstacles you've faced. This is your space, a place where merit and vision will finally be what matter most. As the event concluded, a young reporter asked, "Ms. Ellis, what do you hope the legacy of Ellis Equity Hub will be?" Naomi paused, then replied thoughtfully, "I don't seek a personal legacy. What I hope is that the people who walk through these doors will create their own legacies, legacies of innovation, fairness, and progress that reshape industries and societies." She added firmly, "We cannot change the past, but we can and must create a better future, outside." As the crowd dispersed and the winter sky turned a soft gold, Naomi and Camille stood together once more. Naomi looked up at the new signage gleaming in the fading light. "You know," she said quietly, "when I first stood here and they told me to use the delivery entrance, I almost turned away, but that moment wasn't the end. It was the beginning." Camille nodded, her gaze steady. "And now that moment will inspire thousands to never accept less than what they deserve." And Naomi smiled. "That's the real triumph." As the first cohort of entrepreneurs prepared to enter the Ellis Equity Hub in the weeks to come, a powerful message radiated far beyond the building itself. When injustice meets resilience, and resilience meets opportunity, transformation follows. And this was only the beginning. 1 year later, the Chicago skyline glowed beneath a soft summer sunset from the rooftop terrace of the Ellis Equity Hub. Naomi Ellis and Camille Foster stood side by side, watching the vibrant scene below. The once empty halls of the building now buzzed with life. Innovators, entrepreneurs, and young leaders from diverse backgrounds worked tirelessly to shape the future. The energy was palpable, a testament to what could be achieved when barriers were removed and potential was recognized. Naomi took a quiet breath. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," Camille smiled. "And yet, it feels like we're just getting started." In the distance, banners celebrating the hub's first successful cohort fluttered in the breeze. Over 50 startups had launched, and 3 had already secured major industry partnerships. More importantly, a new standard had been set for inclusion and opportunity, but not everyone had found renewal. Brittany Caldwell, once confident and dismissive at the Ardentis reception desk, now worked long hours at a small customer service center far from downtown. Every job interview since her dismissal had ended the same way polite refusals once employers learned of her past. She no longer carried herself with arrogance. The scandal had stripped away her certainty and forced a painful self-reflection. Through community service, part of the legal resolution Naomi's team had pursued, Brittany had begun to understand the weight of her past actions. She worked with advocacy groups now, not for prestige or redemption, but because it was the only way she knew to begin repairing the harm she had done. Some nights, she walked by the Ellis Equity Hub, standing quietly in the shadows, watching the people entering with hope and ambition. She never dared to go inside, but she carried the lessons of that building with her always. Gregory Shaw had not fared as well. After his arrest and conviction for corporate espionage, he served time in a federal facility. His attempts to regain influence in the business world failed spectacularly. Former allies distanced themselves. Rivals capitalized on his downfall. Now, released on parole, Gregory lived in isolation. His once sharp gaze had dulled when he saw news reports of Ellis Equity Hub's growing impact. A bitter truth settled over him. His schemes, born of greed and prejudice, had not just destroyed a company, they had fueled a movement that empowered those he once dismissed. It was a fitting irony. On the rooftop, Naomi turned to Camille. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "if all the struggle was worth it?" Camille met her gaze without hesitation. "Every moment, not because we won against our dentists, but because we created something better in its place." Naomi nodded, her eyes reflecting both resolve and peace. "We didn't just build a business, we built a message." As twilight settled over the city, the lights of the Ellis Equity Hub shone brightly, illuminating not just the offices within, but a larger truth. Prejudice and injustice can bring down even the mightiest institutions, but vision, integrity, and courage can build something far greater. Naomi placed a hand on Camille's shoulder. "Let's keep going. There's still so much more to change." Camille smiled, eyes shining. Together. Below them, a new generation prepared to rise, not burdened by the mistakes of the past, but empowered by the promise of a better, fairer future. And this, Naomi knew, was the greatest legacy of all. If you believe in fairness, courage, and second chances, share this video and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Your voice can help shape a better future. Comment below if you've ever witnessed the power of standing up for what's right.